And there's Dr. Robb. Dr. Robb, I want to welcome you. I have to say too, when I heard you on Men in Mindfulness with John McCaskill and Will Schneider, I was so encouraged because you are someone who makes sense. You explain things about addiction in a way that I have not heard before, and so clearly, so congruently. So again, I'm very grateful to have you as our guest today. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Great to be here, guys. Thank you, Sarah. Amazing. Every time, it's funny, really, because of all the things I've done and continue to do in the TV, the books, and all that great stuff, the leading, the lectures. When somebody reads my bio, I kind of gasp and go, "Wow, is that me?" Because it's kind of so far long ago. But I'm very passionate about what I do. So yeah, I'd love to share my story, and if there's anything at all along the way that you go, "Oh," before I forget, please feel free just to stop me and we can address there and then, because I know what I'm like. By the time it gets to the end of somebody speaking, I forgot what I was going to ask him, and I knew it was going to be a great question. I just forgot. So yeah, thank you for having me. So guys, I'm going to start off. There's a couple of things I want to say. First of all, this is a horrible story I'm about to hear because it's my story. And I did some horrendous things when I was drinking. So I knew kind of about alcoholism when I was about 19, 20. Wasn't spoke about as a child in my house, nor was it spoken in the 60s anywhere, apart from Betty Ford when she decided to open the clinic, which was awesome. But I knew I was different. And this is the stuff that I've researched intensely over the last 30 years. So everything that we do is kind of, you're not going to find in any other treatment center in the world. It's stuff that we know makes sense. From my own experience, we've studied evidence-based research and we put into our program, and the 97% success rate we brag about, we're very proud of. Now, for 25 years ago, the success rate in treatment centers was 2 to 5%, I think. It's still 2 to 5%. So nothing's changed there. So before I had a drink problem, I knew there was something different to me because I never fit in anywhere. It doesn't matter where I was, I never felt part of. And during growing up, my parents used to drop me at different friends so they could go out and drink or a night out. And I thought that was fine until I went back and did my trauma work. I'm going to talk a lot about trauma because everybody asks me, "Dr. Robb, what's the gateway drug?" And the answer to that is trauma. Going, what? Not cannabis? It's trauma. Every decision you make, every choice you make, when your adult life has come from your childhood trauma, which I'm going to get into shortly because there's a huge topic there that needs to be discussed. Trauma is not what you think it is. It's not an airplane crash or a car crash or even a divorce. It goes deeper than that. With the subconscious brain will store everything we see, and that becomes a norm. So when you get, for instance, a girl who's married this guy that turns out to be an alcoholic and beats her every couple of days, she asks, "Why do I keep choosing these guys?" And I go back to, "What was your father like?" "Well, he used to beat me." Oh, it's like that's the energy you feed off. So I was age 9, and I have to say, by the way, alcohol has got very little to do with alcoholism, but it is part of my story. I never knew that then, but I took my first drink at the age of 9. I came from a musical family. I was on stage with my auntie and uncle playing the classics of the 70s and 80s while we were around. And life was pretty good. I got paid every Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. I got paid, and it was just amazing. I was the richest kid in our school. I know that for a fact, but it was hard work. I missed out on a lot of rock bands and pop bands of the 70s because I was playing. I used to have to go home every Sunday when we finished, do school, but also at nighttime practice the new songs for the weekend ahead. So I only heard Pink Floyd's "Wish You Were Here" 6 months ago, and I was blown away because at the time I was too busy working on, my career and earning money. So I knew that's what I do. I took my first drink in Liverpool Irish Centre in the UK. I remember the time, the date, the place, and the hour I took it. It was phenomenal because when I took this half a beer that my uncle gave me because I was nervous because there was a huge crowd for the second part of our act. The first act, I was going to pieces. And he said, "Take a couple of mouthfuls of this beer, it'll calm you down." And I did. And I remember taking the first drink and going, "Oh my God, I found something that's going to work for me." Because my nerves went in an instant. Everything's disappeared within seconds. I went back on stage and I really enjoyed myself the second set. So that's what I did before every performance. I would drink every Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, one of these half beers, which wasn't much, but it was for a 9-year-old. So as I went through my teens, there was stuff that I picked up at school of why I didn't feel good enough. And that was the two captains of football team used to stand at the front of the class, and they'd pick the team. So they obviously picked the best team players first. And I would always be last to be picked. And that was horrible. I call it the walk of shame. When I had to walk, oh God, yeah, come on, I'll have him. Not even Rob, I'll have him. Just like, oh my God, it was horrible. But one thing one has to remember about the alcoholic brain is that it's very clever. Once it gets hold of a topic, school, marriage, work, business, alcohol, whatever it is, we laser focus on that and become very successful. I was a very, very successful alcoholic, and I did a lot of damage in my life. That was all coming, but I went through school and I was always picked last. So devious mind, I went to my mom and said, can I take boxing lessons? Of course you can. And she took me down. And within a week or two, I'd learned how to handle myself and box. And I threatened one of the captains that if he didn't pick me first, I was going to beat him up at the school. So to the next day, the two captains come to the front, and the first guy said, I'll have Robb Kelly. And everybody was amazed. And I walked to the front of that class like a king. And I always remember to myself, this is the feeling I want for the rest of my life. So I knew I was going to be some sort of success. Go on a few years towards the end of school, and I was obviously a musician, and my auntie was getting unwell, so we stopped getting on the road and touring. So I saw a job for a bass playing job, and it was a session musician, which is kind of, back in the day, used to make radio advertisements, TV advertisements, and I was literally take my bass guitar and he'd give me 3 or 4 pieces of music to play on track. I would finish the track, and they'd give me what I thought was an extortionate amount of money for doing that. And I thought, well, okay, bands are good, but this is the future. This is definitely the future. So that's what I did for about 6 or 7 more months. Played all these radio jingles, kept going to school. And then no one's been to college in my school, in my family. No one would even think of going to college in my family. I was supposed to grow up in a coal mining town, have a couple of children, go to the pub every night and drink till I can't walk and go home. That was my life planned out. My dad did that. His dad did that. My mom was a cleaner. I came from the projects in America, the council estates in Great Britain. So I come from nearly nothing. I found out later on in life, I used to say, well, my mom and dad did the best. Well, that's not good enough. I later learned on in life, because what happens is they didn't do their best. They dropped the ball. And I used to walk to school with holes in my socks and shoes in the snow because mom and dad couldn't afford a new pair of shoes for me. However, and this is the trauma and child abuse. However, they could afford to go to the bar every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they didn't have holes in their shoes, as some amazing counselor once pointed it out, which broke me down in tears when I did my trauma work, because I realized that I had been abused, I had been neglected. And one of my biggest fears right now is abandonment. And it all comes from the things that happened as a child. So I was finishing the end of school, and I decided that I wanted more out of life. So I wanted to go to university, which again, unheard of, but I'd started mixing with people better off than us. I lived on a council estate, lived in private houses, when mum and my dad had a mortgage, they didn't pay rent. And I was hanging around them guys, and I saw a job in a music magazine in England for a bass player for the famous Abbey Road in London. Of course, the Beatles have played there and everything. So I decided to go and audition. I took 7 auditions before I actually got the job. And this is against staunch seasoned bass players, in the 20s and 30s and even 40s that I was up against. And I'm like 16. But every time I pick a topic to do, I'm very good at laser focused brain, again, neural pathways and the way they work and attach to something that we're doing, which we'll get into later. And I got the job. I played with Elton John, Queen, David Bowie, just to mention a few great early morning talks into the late night, early morning with Freddie Mercury on, probably 2 or 3 times a week. It was just phenomenal guy. I learned a lot of humility from him, and to be yourself and all these great things that I learned from him. And then from a friend of a friend of a friend in the Freemasons, I got to go to Oxford University. So my bass playing gig, which was like, I don't know how much, let's say it was $500 an hour back in 1980, which today is like $3,000 an hour. I put myself through college and university, and I graduated, and I joined the police force, and my drinking just was not getting worse. It never was worse as far as I was concerned, never. It was always controllable. I lasted a few months in the police force, and they fired me for being drunk on duty. Now, being drunk on duty wasn't the problem for me. Being sent home and them taking my car keys and firing me on the spot was not a problem. But the inspector called me an alcoholic. Now, that was a problem, because I wasn't an alcoholic, because I've seen the alcoholics. They're the guys at the corner of the street warming themselves up around a fire with big trench coats with string around the waist as a belt. I know what alcoholics look like, so don't call me an alcoholic. What I know today, obviously, is alcoholics come from all walks of life, famous, not famous, rich, poor, black, white, doesn't make any difference. See, what I know now but didn't know then is that I have a disease that's hereditary. It's a biochemical disease on my brain that's passed down from generations to generations, and it's remapped through trauma as a child. And it means that you can't drink yourself into becoming an alcoholic. Now, you can be a drug user and become addicted to drugs, but you can't with alcohol. From the minute you take that first drink, we're done. We're completely done. Sooner or later, it'll all come out of control, and my life will either be death or I'll get help. And I wanted death, by the way. When I was on the streets, I didn't want help. So I'm going through this. I got fired from the police force to drink in. I'm still living with mom and dad. There's shame on that, for goodness sake, because she's so proud that I went in the police force. And then I got a job with a telecoms for the army. It was like a communications company, building masts and stuff like that for the army. Well, I have the alcoholic brain, which is one of the smartest brains ever developed. So what happens is I stay there for a few weeks, if not a month, and think I can do this. So I got a couple of contacts there and set my own business up within 12 months. And we're taking millions of dollars a year, or millions of pounds a year, because I have that addicted brain. That's the smartest man in the room. Well, then my alcoholism took off a little bit more, because now I was masked by money. So wealth and a little bit of fame masked my drinking. So I decided to get married. Now I had all this money. So I got married to this girl who knew I drank every night, but I didn't have a problem. I told her that I'm not an alcoholic and stop anytime I want. And she believed me. And it started to go out of control. Now I was drinking every single day, and I was drinking in the middle of the day. And I started drinking in the morning, then out of bed to get me up, to get to the morning, to get to the office. It just went on and on and on. So I wanted to stop. And my wife said, "We want to have a baby." So we had our first baby. I took a Bible to the hospital. I held the baby when she was born, Charlotte. I handed it back to mom. And I got my Bible. I looked into my wife's eyes, and I said, "I swear to God and you and my daughter that I'll never touch alcohol again." 4 hours later, I was drunk, and I didn't know why. The drinking continued, and we decided to have a second child. Well, that was it as far as I was concerned. Now I've got 2 children, a dog, a house, a mortgage, cars. Now I've got to be the proper dad. Went down there with 2 Bibles this time. This is the blank mental twist that I'm going to talk about with alcoholism. It's not a choice. Gets down there, had the baby, Abigail. I'll give her back to mom, put my hands on right hand, left hand on 2 Bibles. Swear to my 2 daughters, mom, and to God, as I looked up to the heaven asking for help, I'll never drink again. And that was the worst 6 hours of my life, because 6 hours later I was drunk and I didn't know why. But this continued. There were some horrible things happened in that house. I remember once coming down the stairs, 9 o'clock, and my daughter was trying to get down the stairs. She couldn't really, manage the stairs. She was just about walking. Mummy was at the bottom of the stairs, I think, in case she fell. And Daddy wanted a drink real quick before he went to work, and he stumbled over her, and she went bouncing down the stairs, followed by Daddy that fell on her and nearly killed her. Wasn't enough to stop me drinking, though. So we carried on. There was verbal abuse in that house, but never physical abuse at this point. This is what I tell people today. The further down the scale you go with alcoholism, the lower the bar goes, and the lower you lower that bar. One morning I got up, and my wife, I was in the spare bedroom for some unknown reason. And I walked up, and my wife was holding the baby, It was about 9 months at the time. She came out with a huge black eye. And I was like, where did you fall? What, did you fall in the bathroom? And she looked at me and she was crying. She said, Rob, you did this last night. I was in blackout. I don't remember that. And there were more instances of that I don't remember. But I have to put my hands up today and say, yes, that must have been me. Nobody else in the house. One morning, about 3 o'clock, I woke up. I searched the floor for vodka. I couldn't find any around the bed. I was dying for drink. I needed to drink. I was going into DTs. I was shaking a little bit. I went downstairs in the middle of the night. I opened the cupboard searching for a bottle of vodka and finally found one. Now, for an alcoholic in my state, finding the bottle of vodka was like winning $1 billion on the lottery. It was like right there and then, this was it. I took the bottle out, I put it on the side for a second. I'm turning around to get a crystal glass, mind you, because I'm not an alcoholic. So I'm reaching for this $100, glass. When I turned around, my wife had snatched the bottle off the side. And this is what she said to me, guys. She said, Rob, I think you've had enough. She was probably right. What I should have said is, thank you, Mrs. Kelly. Put the bottle away and went up to bed and spent another 4 hours in bed. What this alcoholic did was took a kitchen knife out and stabbed her 3 times. As she lay bleeding. As she lay bleeding on the floor, I called an ambulance, I called the police, and I called a taxi that's just around the corner. And as soon as the taxi came, I waited at the door. I was looking at her. She was bleeding, but she wasn't going to die, I didn't think. And as soon as I heard the sirens, I got in the taxi cab. I fled to the airport and I went to Spain. And I wasn't going to come back because I knew they were going to press charges on me. And I can't go to prison. I'm not the type of guy that can be locked up. 3 months later, when the solicitors and attorneys got hold of it, they decided not to press charges. And I came home expecting a big hug off my wife saying, okay, this is the last chance. But when I got back home, she had all the bags packed. And she had my children ready to go. And she took my kids and bags and she left me. And I was angry. I was really angry. It's like, nobody does this to me. Still full of ego. So I got with my attorney. I said, you need to get my kids back tomorrow, go to court, do whatever you've got to do. But if you don't, I'll never do business with you again. Early in the morning, next day, knock at the door. There was my attorney with the 2 children. I was like, oh, the pride. Oh, thank goodness for that. There's my children. I brought them in. I sat them in front of the TV. They were laughing at a cartoon on the TV, and I walked into the kitchen. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be great just to have one beer to celebrate my kids coming home? 3 days later, when the police broke the door down, the kids hadn't been fed for 2 days. There was no diapers or nappies changed. The floor was strewn in empty vodka bottles. I had no idea what day it was. The police burst down and the police officer kicked me real hard. And as I woke up, he served me with unfit father papers. And they grabbed the kids, ages 1 and 3, and they took them to the door, and I scrambled to the door, and I'm sorry, and I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I was crying, and the children were crying, mum was crying, even one of the policemen was crying. It was just sad. And I stood there deflated at this door, full of shame, remorse, guilt that I'd done this, because I would never have done this to my children. My eldest daughter was 3 at the time, walking down with mommy's hand, just holding mommy's hands down the path. She says, Daddy, Daddy, please don't go. Halfway down the path, she turned again. He said, Daddy, Daddy, please get better. And as they got to the gate and opened the gate, she turned around one final time and she says, Daddy, Daddy, please stop drinking. And I couldn't do it, guys. I just couldn't do it. I went into the kitchen, I opened another beer. 5 or 6 months later, the house had gone, the cars had gone, my medical license had gone. My wife had left. They foreclosed on the house. I went to my mom's, who threw me out after 2 days because I was heavily drinking by now. I went from friends to acquaintances, from acquaintances to the streets. I remember sat on the streets thinking, where the hell did that just go wrong? I'm not an alcoholic, by the way, guys. just going through some bad luck. I'll get it all back, don't worry. I spent 14 months on our streets, fighting every day, physically fighting to stay alive. I woke up one morning on my bench, because we all claimed a bench out there, and the guy next to me was stabbed to death for his sneakers. That's the kind of world I was in. I'd beat people up for money. I would attack people coming out of nightclubs who were drunk. I'd steal a wallet for money. I'd bare knuckle fight for money, and I would steal for alcohol. And that was my life for 14 months. I was a big ex-bodybuilder and fighter when I went on the streets. But as the starvation set in and the lack of food, which later studies talks about the hypothalamus, which is my latest findings, which we'll get into later, I dropped weight like crazy. So I must have dropped 80 pounds. Now people are beating me up because I couldn't hold my own. I got all my teeth knocked out. I got my nose broken. I was going to die. I tried suicide so many times, but on 6 times, and on 2 occasions it worked. My heart stopped. And 2 paramedics brought me back to life. I hated them men for years after, for bringing me back to life. I remember stood in the streets thinking, this can't be hell, but I can sure see it from here. One morning, I was on the back ends of Manchester going into Delirium Tremors, which is lack of alcohol through the disease on the body, and all the nervous system starts to get shot and organs start to shut down. I dropped to my hands and knees and I started crying from my belly because everything had just hit me. It was like an achy cry in the belly. I wasn't crying because I lost my kids, guys. I wasn't crying because I lost my wife and my houses and everything. I was crying because the first time in my life I realized that I couldn't stop drinking. And he took all that from me. And I sobbed and I sobbed and I sobbed. I remember looking up to the sky and I just said this is what I said: if there's a God up there, I can't do this on my own anymore. 30 seconds later, a guy come around the corner, the back ends of Manchester. He shouldn't have found when there's nobody around there. And he stumbled upon me. He'd missed his last bus over from a Bible study. And he said, can I help you? And I said, yeah, I'm dying. He took me back to his house and he let me shave and dress for the first time in 12 months. Got some new clean clothes on. I shaved, I had a nice bath. I smelled good. And he said, Rob, you can stay in this house as long as you want till you get back on your feet. Because there's something special about you, Rob. I can't put my finger on it, but you can stay here. You've got to come to AA meetings with me. And I've been to them meetings and I hated those meetings. But I thought, well, it's a dry bed, so I'm going to go. And I went to this meeting. And of course, all the war stories started and all the moaning started. And this guy, probably halfway around the room, said, my name's John, I'm a recovered alcoholic. And I thought, what did he just say? What? So after the meeting, I went over to him and I said, will you sponsor me? And he said, no, but I will be a spiritual advisor for a period of 12 weeks. That's what he said to me. I thought it was weird. He said, bring a big book and a dictionary. Here's my address. Every Wednesday, 7 o'clock. Don't be late. So for 12 weeks, I went to that man's house. I walked there for an hour, spent 7 till 8 with him. And I walked back, got home 9 o'clock to this guy's house. And I slept on the floor in his spare bedroom on a mattress. Did that for 12 weeks. He taught me stuff. He taught me humility. He taught me about a higher power. It doesn't have to be Jesus or Buddha. It's just a power greater than me that I believed in. It's a spiritual power that I believe in. When I walked out that man's house, I felt different every time I went. On the last day, he grabbed my hand and we knelt down to pray. And he said to me, Rob, your life's going to change from tomorrow. I said, don't be stupid. I live in this guy's basement. Nobody knows I'm there. How can my life change? He said, Rob, believe me, your life will change. You've been sent here to help people. I thought he was a loony bin. I left that house. I walked home. I was so proud walking home. I knew I'd never drink if I continued to do what he taught me. I got home, and by the time I got home, the guy was staying with it. Hey, there's a part-time job. I'll put your name down for it. Are you up for it? And I'm like, yeah. So the next day I started that part-time job. Within 2 weeks, it turned into a full-time job. A week after, someone gave me a broken down car, but I could get to work and back in it. And my life started to get better and better from then. And I remember getting my first paycheck, which must have been about £10 or something. I went to a local petrol gas station and I bought a little card for John, and I bought a little teddy bear. That's all I could afford. And I did the hour's walk back to his. I was so excited to give him this card and teddy bear because he changed my life. It literally saved my life. And I got to the apartment, there's nobody there. It was all dark. So I was knocking on the door, and this lady on the right-hand side opened the door and she says, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yeah, can you tell me where John's relocated to?" And she said, "John?" I said, "Yeah, John. There's been no one in that apartment for the last couple of months. I'm sure you got the wrong address." I said, "Okay." She closed the door, she turned her light off, and I knocked on the left-hand side door, quite anxious now. She scared me a little bit. And the guy came to the door and I said, "Hey, can you tell me where John's relocated to, please?" He said, "John." I'm like, "What? Again? What do you mean?" "John, who lived next door." And he said to me, and I quote, that flat apartment has been empty for 12 months. It's derelict. You can't go in it. It's dangerous. I knew I had the right address. I thought, these guys are crazy. So I went back to the meeting that I was at 12 weeks ago and I met him. And after the meeting, I spoke to the chairman. I said, "Remember speaking to John?" And he goes, "John." Like, oh my God, there seems to be a habit here. I said, "John, the guy I was speaking to over in the corner near the coffee machine, I was talking about being a spiritual advisor." And he said, "Rob, we saw you over near the coffee machine talking to yourself." I've never found that man, nor did anybody hear of that man. But what he gave me was a power that I've never felt before. What he gave me was a program. He told me that when I go around the world, because that's where he said he was going, that was to guarantee everybody that they're going to recover from the disease of addiction and alcoholism, which I thought was crazy. But he'd empowered me. So that's what I did. And going on some years when I'm working and I'm happy, I'm still on my own, I got a chance to come over to America to do some talks, some lectures for a church in Plano, just outside Dallas. So I came over and, before I came over, 2 days before, 3 or 4 days before, I got all my stuff ready. I was so excited. It was like, it was supposed to be for 2 weeks. I've never been to America before. The only place I've been to is Spain. It's going to be awesome. And I got my passport out and it was outdated by 3 days. And I'm like, oh my God. So I jumped in my little car and I drove down to Liverpool where they do all the passports. And I put my passport in. I said, "I want to expedite it. He said, "Okay, it's another £20. I said, "When will it be?" I said, "Well, normally it takes 3 months, but you've expedited it, which is good. So it'll be about 6 weeks." I went, 6 weeks. I need it in like 5 days. And he said, "I'm sorry. Do you want your money back?" And I said, "No, let it go." I walked home and I was so scared of calling what I called America to tell this girl who was organizing that I couldn't make it because my passport had run out. And I wasn't going to do it till the day before and make up some crazy excuse why I couldn't go. 4 days later, there was a knock on the door. I opened the door. There was the postman with my passport. I got my passport and I thought, what the hell's going on here? I got on the plane and I came over to Dallas, Texas. And the minute I put my feet on the floor at the airport, I knew I was never going to go home again. So I set up a little practice. Within 2 months of being here, I got a DVD deal with an addiction company, FMS Productions, to make a film about addiction. It went to #1. It sold over 3 million copies in prisons and institutions and stuff like that. And my life started to get better and better. I met my wife, who is today called Janet. We met 7, 8 years ago. We've been married for 7 years. And my life kind of makes sense now when I look back, because I did my own trauma work. I never believed and never told the John story ever until about 4, 5, 6 years ago, because I thought everyone would just think I'm crazy. So it was just enlightening and uplifting to be able to share the story with people. And the more I shared, the more I got people back going, "Oh my God, I had the same experience." So I started to work on myself. And then I got my psychology license in Texas, and I opened up what we call was a small practice. Then we opened a ranch where we brought famous people in to get recovered. And we opened an office in Dallas, and we was inundated with people that were getting well. You know, they wasn't going to treatment 5 or 6 times. When they were leaving us, they were getting well. And that's 90% what John taught me and 10% college. And maybe, obviously, percentage of my experience played into that a lot. My story tells a story of other alcoholics. My experience with John is kind of unique. So I'll put this together. It's called a 3D program: abandonment, shame, and fear, which all under the heading of trauma. And I started working with people, and We got married again to a beautiful woman, and her parents were in San Antonio. So she always wanted to come to San Antonio. So we got enough money in the bank. We came down to San Antonio and we bought our dream house about two or 3 years ago. And I've worked with over 7,000 people over the last 30 years. I work with famous people. I work with road sweepers, taxi drivers, don't make any difference. We have a sliding scale. I do a lot of pro bono work today. We gave $150,000 to people who needed it last year, and we'll do the same again this year. One parent families who want to get the kids back, but they can't go, we'll pay for it. One parent families that can get the children back, but they've got nowhere to stay, we'll pay for the apartment. We'll pay for the car. We have a special bank account now that we just send 10 random people that I met on Facebook, never met them, but I know they're struggling. We send them £100 every month. It's set up for the rest of my life. We just do that automatically. I speak in trauma foundations. I do the army, I do the Navy, I do the police, I do veterans. Natural facts, next week I'm doing a veteran Birdwell Foundation, which is services who's seen trauma, and I explain to them how to get over it. I give my time freely wherever I can. And my life today is amazing, but I always got told that if you keep doing what you're doing, you'll get all the things back you lost. Well, I've not seen my daughter for 28 years. 2 years ago, she messaged me on Facebook. She says, Dad, I've just seen you on TV over here. I just researched you. You do some amazing stuff. I want to meet you. So I flew over on the next red eye, me and my wife, to see her. I met her at the door, and we hugged and we cried. I was so nervous. And I thought that was the best feeling ever. And then she said, Dad, I've got something to show you. And she took me through to the main living room. And she handed me my 3-month-old granddaughter. And right there and then, I realized I was doing good work. I realized I've been rewarded. I've still not seen my youngest yet, but I know I will. I know I will. And well, now we have 5 offices around the world, which is awesome. Little guy on the streets, come from nowhere, but was adamant that he had a message to share with the world and wasn't going to stop. I asked God for a platform. My God. My last show was 18 million viewers it had. That's some platform that he gave me. I work with his kids and I can ask for stuff. That's what he told me. I always ask for something if they can help other people. I'm not here right now, but I'm very aggressive with recovery. Normally when I speak, I'm shouting and cursing to get the message home. So if I'm in an AA meeting, all guys are homeless, I'm not going to speak like I am today. But the next day they might invite me to speak at church, or speak accordingly in church. My grandfather told my mom to tell me, because I was born after he died, was always dress accordingly, always speak accordingly, and I always act accordingly. And that's what I do today. I have a life beyond my wildest dreams. At first, I was embarrassed about my wealth. I used to hide my car around the corner so nobody could see me. I drive a $150,000 car that I just bought 3 days ago. I'm not embarrassed about that. I park it right at the front when I go today, because what I'm selling to people, not look at me, but look what you can be. Because I'm a truly believer, especially around quantum physics, that we can be anybody we want to be. And I often tell a story. You go, how does that be, Rob? I said, the only difference between you and the guy running the multi-million-dollar company as CEO is he believed he could do it. You don't. So when we look at quantum physics, a basketball court, for instance, quantum physics tells me I can be 25 places at the same time on that court because nothing's really solid. Well, where would I want to be? I would be over near the goal. So when I got the ball, I would slap it in the net and I would be as successful. I always ask myself, when people ask myself, how'd you get there, Rob? And this is my answer. I walked over and I took that position. You see what I visualize in my mind, I know I can hold in my hand. And 7,000 patients have proven that with me as well. Nobody's ever come back and said they relapsed or their life's gone to crap. Nobody ever. I have $50,000 sat on my desk. It's for anybody who's relapsed. I'll give it to them while doing my program. If you have relapsed while not doing my program. I'm the only company in the world that offers a money back guarantee if you relapse after you leave us. It's unheard of. Nobody does that. But I have a program that was God-given. It's not my program. I wish I could sit here right now to all of you and tell you how clever I am, because I went back to school about 9 years ago and I got a second PhD in behavioral science, because you can't miss the body and the central nervous system and our actions. 90% is non-verbal communication, and there was much more to it. I wish I could say I was this clever, but I'm not. I just did what I was told to do by God and people around me. And I hang around with the right people. When I first come to America, I said to people around me, I'm thinking of writing a book. And most of them went, don't be stupid. Come on, Rob, you can't, are you crazy? You can't do that. So I didn't do it. A couple of years later, I was hanging around with the people I liked, people on my level who thought like me, not well, thought like me, that you can do anything. I said, hey guys, I'm thinking of writing a book. And they all went, what? I thought you had a book out already. Are you kidding me? Why haven't you done it already? So I wrote a book. See, if I hang around 9 depressed people, I will become the 10th. If I hang around 9 successful people, I will be the 10th. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. That's what I believe in today. So I am not anonymous in any fellowship. I always announce myself as Robb Kelly. I truly appreciate everyone else's anonymity. I would never, ever put that at risk. But me, no. And I'm out there for a reason. See, if I've got something to say and you're willing to listen, all you got to do is find Robb Kelly. ROBBKELLY, easy to remember. Put it in the internet, you'll find me. Any search engine around the world, you'll find me. I always give my phone number out every time I speak or do a radio show or a podcast. People think I'm crazy. But you know, the guys call me up for a 5-minute pep talk just before they're going to blow their head off, just before they're going to slit their throat, you know, or got into deep depression. I'd rather have 5-minute pep talk than go to the funeral, is what I always tell them. And I'm always busy with these guys and I give my time. And if a strange number calls when I'm halfway through a session with the patient, I ask them, can I pause for a second? And I take that call, because that might be the guy with a gun in his hand and a phone in the other that wants to speak to Dr. Robb Kelly. And I'm always going to be available to him, because that guy was available for me. And I'm powerful today. Not only in my presence, I'm powerful in everything I do. I own who I am. I love who I am. I love the person I've become, because I've cleared my own trauma up. The trauma is what kills us. It's not the alcohol. It's not the drugs. It's not depression, guys. It really isn't. It's the trauma, because the human brain holds all that stuff in and we don't get rid of it. If anyone's ever seen a deer being hit by a car, but not being killed, it will lie motionless for a couple of seconds. Then it will jump up. Then it will shake violently for about 5 seconds. Then it runs off. That deer has never suffered any trauma from that car crash. Never. It'll go past the road again and try and jump across. Why? Because it shook all that trauma off. Human beings don't do that. Human beings keep up to that. Later on in life, when something happens and we don't realize why it's causing so much pain, until we go back and do our work, and we find out my parents, my sister, my brother, my aunt, my uncle put me through that as a child. I was working with one guy, and I'll finish on this because we have questions and stuff. I was working with one guy once, and his father did not get on. They've been apart for most of his life. And we did some real deep trauma work. And he finally came out that his dad was a marathon runner, a professional marathon runner in the Olympics. And he wanted his son to be a runner of any sort. So we used to do the 400 meters or the 800 meters or something like that. But he wasn't as good as his dad. And he was always trying. And there was one special occasion at the school where four people were in the race, and the first 3 got a t-shirt, and this guy came in last, and his dad was disgusted with him, and they never spoke since. Turns out, when we look at it now, that he was chasing that t-shirt for 23 years. That's what I'm talking about, trauma. I am so happy, joyous, and free today. Sometimes I get a bit, I don't know, I feel as if I shouldn't be this happy. I shouldn't be this, you know. I think one of my best moments in my life, and it was only like 4 or 5 years ago, so it's been a long process for me, was when I realized that I don't really care what other people think about me. So I'm pretty plain dressed, as you can see, and I got a nice t-shirt on. Usually I wear orange color scrubs with yellow bottoms and pink shoes, and you know, I even dye my hair a streak of blue when I go on a holiday. I listen to rap music, I listen to country music, I listen to anything I want, and I don't care what other people think of me, because I'm 60, but you know something? I'm still 25 in my heart, and I'm going to beat that. I've just lost 55 pounds over the last 4 or 5 months, and I'm going to be at peak condition in my 60s, because I love life, and I know I can do anything I want. Right off the bat, I don't think I can think of anything, though your questions will lead into other stuff, no doubt. But that's kind of it, guys, I think. That's my deal going through life. My wife's very proud. You know, after 7 years of marriage, I've got to tell you this. We've been very successful because she's by my side and she pushes me. Because there are some times when I'm just about to go on stage or TV or whatever in front of millions of people, and suddenly my old mind comes back and I go, "What the hell are you doing, Rob? Why you've got nothing to say to these guys, Rob? You're well out of your depth, Rob." And my wife looks at me and she turns around and she said, "Don't forget, you're Robb bleep Kelly." And I think, yeah, I am. And I walk on stage every time and kill it. But she sent me a text the other day in the middle of the day. And she said, "I want to just tell you how proud I am of you and how much success you've dealt with. Even though you're an alcoholic, you're doing the right thing." And I sat for a minute and I cried. And I suddenly realized we need to take more time to smell the roses. And just in that instant, I realized the grass was really green. So I took my shoes off and I got a barefoot in the grass and I listened to the birds that I'd never listened to before. And it was a beautiful day in Texas, but there was a slight wind and I held my face to the wind. And I thought, I'm one of the luckiest men in the world. I survived. 3% of people come off the streets who are alcoholics, 3%. I was one of the 3% that did. I'm probably a 1% that comes successful and can carry the message successfully. How blessed am I now? Just what a life that I've been given is just beyond my wildest dreams. I hold an AA group every Saturday morning. I do a book study and we do a meeting. Started off with 2 people coming there, me and another guy. It now has 50 odd people that I'm teaching every Saturday to, so they can get their life back. I lend money. I don't lend, sorry. I give money freely at the meeting and anywhere else. If somebody needs a bus ticket, we'll buy it. If somebody needs anything, I'll buy it. I buy refrigerators, TVs for people who just moved in their apartment. I go, "What do you need?" "Well, we haven't got a TV." "I got it. I got you a TV. It'll be delivered tomorrow. Get it on Amazon. It'll be done." It gives me more pleasure than to be able to do that than it does anything else, because at the end of the day, this isn't my money. It's God's money. You know, someone once told me, and it's so true, guys, that you'll never go broke by giving away. We had a guy come in and just like 2 months ago, and he was desperate and he had a few psych problems and no medication. So it cost $5,000 to get medication for the next 6 months for us. That's a lot of money, $5,000. This is how my life works and God works with me. So I gave him $5,000 in cash and I told him to go and get his medication. We drove him there and he got his medication. Then we put him up in a halfway house for 12 months. And I came back home and we just looked at each other and said, "We did good, didn't we?" And we both said, "Yeah, we did good." It's not my problem what he does with that money. It's my problem how I give that money. And as God is my witness, about 4 days later, we had no idea. We got to the mailbox, we opened it, and there was a check there for the IRS for $18,000. Always comes back to me. So it was got a question, guys. It's got a question.
Oh my gosh, that was, I think we probably all have to take a breath. Oh my gosh, that was so inspiring.
Every time I speak, people just like, it goes silent. They go, "Oh my God." And I go, "Yeah, it's kind of freaky, isn't it?" You know, and there's tons more to that as well. I was diagnosed with cancer when I got to Dallas after about 2 years of being here. And it was cancer of the esophagus. I had no insurance. I wasn't a green card holder. So I went to a hospital and they told me that 10% come off the table with the cancer so ridden in your esophagus. So they called my parents in England and they told my parents that I probably wouldn't survive. And then the doctors passed the phone on to me. He was crying and I was hysterical, you know, and it was just horrible. And the next thing I knew, I woke up and there's like 4 doctors and 6 people in suits now. And they thrust me a clipboard and said, "Just sign it." My wife said, "Just sign it." And I signed it. And what they said to me was, "We took you down for one more x-ray just to make sure where we're cutting and everything." And the cancer had gone. But they'd called my parents and told them that I was going to die. So we could have sued them for millions and millions of dollars. So we signed the waiver to say we wouldn't. And things like that happen every couple of months for me, crazy stuff that people don't believe. But hey, it's only my story, you know.
Wow. That's amazing. I love that. I mean, there's so much to love about this story. It's just, you know, how we look at people after hearing your story and the wonder of who they could be. You know, the angel who obviously came in your life. That, I mean, how could that not have been an angel? I mean, whether or not people believe whatever they believe, I mean, that's just incredible. Guys, help me out here. Who has something to say or ask a question?
I do, Sarah.
Yeah.
Hi. First off, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story. It's so inspirational. And I think that seeing things through the lens of addiction is a really helpful way to treat ourselves. And I like what you said about how it's really at the core of it, it's abandonment, shame, and fear. And until you fix those three things, you really don't get to, you can't just stop doing the drug. You can't just stop drinking the alcohol, because if you don't fix those underlying things, and that's where my question comes in. I've seen you in some other podcasts, and one of the things that you said sort of made me question my own journey with addiction. I'm not sober now, but I used to abuse alcohol for social anxiety. And anytime I was in groups, I would just get shit-faced drunk so that I could feel like I was fitting in and I was a part of everything. And then when I started really grappling with myself and loving myself and saying, I don't care what people think, like what you do, the desire to get shit-faced in front of people just slowly but surely went away. But you said in one of your podcasts that you don't treat the people who don't have an alcoholic as a disease. And so I'm curious for you what you see the difference, because I will tell you that I didn't think at the time I could control it. And now I'm about 3-4 years of, having a drink when I'd like to have a drink. And sometimes I feel ashamed of that. But at the same time, it was the way that it was taking away that anxiety and loving myself and celebrating who I was that got me to the point where I didn't need to drink too much. So I was just wondering what your thoughts on alcoholism as a disease versus a crack addict or a drug or some other addiction.
Well, drug addicts and crackheads and all that good, that they are born into an addictive personality. It's different to the addictive brain. So when they take drugs, they have a chance whether they take another one or they can stop, or even in real, heavy cases, they can stop or moderate given a good reason, or put in treatment and recover. Alcoholics already are alcoholics when we're born. So this pertains to alcoholics only. We have a predisposition, passed down gene from generations. And the moment we take that first drink, we are doomed, no matter what. You have to remember two things. First of all, the guys that don't drink, that are born alcoholic in the family, they're the guys running Google and Apple. I must remember that smartest mind in the world is the alcoholic mind, the addicted brain. Not the same as the addicted personality, slightly different. And the other thing we have to bear in mind, Teresa, of course, is there's a fine line between a heavy drinker and an alcoholic. You could be a heavy drinker. You could stop for a bit. You could drink, for a day and be okay, and then stop for a month. And then that's kind of a heavy drinker, unless you're really binging, of course, then you're alcoholic. So there's a fine line. It's not how much alcohol that we drink or drugs we take. It's what alcohol and drugs do to our body. So after a certain period of drug use, then it will show up the same as alcoholism, as an addiction, a serious addiction. I will only work with people who understand. First of all, we have a lot of training, a lot of education on the disease for those people who don't understand, because unless you think it's a disease and you think it's a choice, well, it might be. You might be that heavy drinker, but if you can't control. But the famous saying is, when I enjoy my drinking, I can't control it. And when I control my drinking, I don't enjoy it. That's a sign of an alcoholic, and that's a different plane altogether. So if you're a heavy drinker, there's plenty of places to go. Go to a therapist, treatment, whatever you want to do. I'm not your guy. I'm the guy who, with the chronic alcoholics who can't control their life and it's going to crap, and there's crying babies and distraught wives and all that. That's the kind of people I like to do. But we have worked with depressed people. We have worked with motivational people. We have worked with, drug addicts who've controlled it. I mean, our idea now is to heal. So we've taken all this, we do alcohol only, we just want to heal people from within. And I think everybody's capable of it. It's proven in the past you don't have to take a drug to get over a drug. So if you're taking Suboxone for 2 years to get over heroin, there's something going wrong there. The brain doesn't know the difference between Suboxone and heroin. The brain doesn't know that it's the same feeling. The brain lights up and it becomes an addiction. And that's the only thing that's the difference. And people don't know that when they're talking that I'm an alcoholic. Well, what is an alcoholic? well, I just drink too much beer. That is not the case. That is definitely not the case with an alcoholic. We just have to see what's happening, you know?
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, I guess for me, I got to the root of why I was drinking, and it was really just based on alcohol and groups. I mean, I didn't drink alone, and once like I said, I just kind of got to a place where it lost its appeal to me. But it didn't get me to the point where I felt like I could never have a drink again. So I sort of struggle with that about whether or not I really was an alcoholic or if I wasn't, but I appreciate your explanation.
Thank you. I think, you know, the best thing in the world when you think you're an alcoholic is to be not an alcoholic. So I would hate for somebody to go to meetings and be ashamed to every time they drink if they don't have the alcoholic gene. If there's no alcoholism in your family, you have to question that. Do you just like drinking or you're an alcoholic? There's a big difference, and people can control it, you know. But if you was an alcoholic, it would always get worse every time you drank. So we never, a binge drink never gets any better. We don't come off a drink halfway through going, wow, that was amazing. It's always worse consequences and feeling worse and the shame, remorse, and guilt that we have over drinking alcohol. It's just, that's why we isolate. And the alcoholic gene and the addiction gene want us isolated. He wants us in a 1-bedroom apartment with the phone off the hook, the mailbox taped so nobody can see, hear, or feel us, and he just wants to kill us. That doesn't sound as if you're in that category, which is awesome. Believe me, it's awesome. So therefore, you may abuse alcohol, but I wouldn't feel any guilt or shame about it, not from what you've told me.
No, I still had all those 3 things though, and I had to get to those 3 things and work on those. And those are still a work in progress, but I appreciate your answer. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Teresa.
Doc, if I may, and indulge me for just a minute, you were very inspiring, and I took a bunch of notes. Like I told you at the beginning of this, I'm kind of a broken dude too, and I get emotional sometimes, especially when I hear such powerful stories like this. First, as a stranger to you, let me tell you that I'm proud of you. Let me tell you that I'm proud of the journey that you've gone through, and proud that you've come to the place that you can share this. You've deeply touched me, absolutely. You've reaffirmed that redemption is never dead. This may be the powerful story that I've ever witnessed.
Wow.
Definitively for me, you've given me more courage to continue to talk about my story as this thing is so touching. You've earned the title and the life as an American, and I thank you for that. I was born blessed. I was born here. I'll touch more on that in a second. You've also regained and earned the title of father and husband. And that's a hard thing to do. That's not just something that's just given. That's something that's earned. And I pray for you, and I'll continue to pray for you that you'll have that title again over your youngest. And I know that will happen, as you know. This power of the story that Sarah has done, it is extremely powerful. And it took one person at the right moment to enter your life. And in these meetings and these sessions that we talk, all of us have the ability to be that one person. And as you, apologies. If there's one thing that I can say from your story here, Dr. Robb, is that one person wasn't some random off person. Maybe it was an angel, maybe it was the hand of God. But maybe it was the actual inner strength in you that you recognized. Maybe you were the person that you needed to hear. Maybe you saw you and you saved your own life. I'll agree with you. I think that you're not clever, but you're damn authentic. And that is much better than clever could ever be. Now, I'll shut up about that stuff. Now a question about addiction. And I know that you relate mostly to alcoholism. But a couple questions here. Is all addiction bad? I think it may have answered it a little bit with the addicted brain, and maybe I could ask you to go a little bit more into that. For me, I'm addicted to my work. I'm addicted to serving. I'm addicted to law enforcement. I'm addicted to my military service. And I don't know if that's necessarily an emotional addiction, a mental addiction, or if it's an addiction of wanting to, in some ways, oddly enough, as it says to a stranger, to be like you, to earn my place as an American, to earn the ability to call myself an American every day. Because I don't think that it's a right. Yes, it's a God-given right, that we were born here, but I have to earn my place every single day. And I think that we all have to earn our place here to make our country greater and to be better and to share a story like you. Being an American is being a self-driven success, and you've clearly demonstrated that that's what you are. But it's also about giving back and being selfless. Mm. And again, you absolutely demonstrate that every single day. So if you could touch on the addiction part real quick, again, I thank you so much. You're very touching and impactful, and I'd like to connect with you outside of this in some way. God bless you, Dr. Robb.
Wow. I don't know where to start with that. That's probably some of the kindest stuff anyone's ever said to me. Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate that. I agree with everything you said. No, not all addictions are bad to a certain degree. If you're neglecting your family, you're neglecting work, and if you're neglecting your children, then you've got to look at that addiction, whether it be the gym, running, whatever it may be. If you go on a holiday, vacation with the family, and the first thing you do is looking for a gym to train at, you might want to look at that a little bit closer. No muscle's going to shrink within a couple of days. No one's going to get unfit, unless you're a footballer, and in that case, obviously you do. But if you're a high-performing athlete, then fine. So yeah, not all addictions are bad, but unfortunately mine are. So let me talk about the alcoholic brain just for a second, that you might understand, all of you. Is I studied neuroplasticity is what I study in neuroscience. I'm a behavioral scientist, and I'm an addiction psychologist. So our brain, why is it different to other people? Well, here's just one of the reasons why. The hypothalamus, which is at the base of the brain towards the back, the hypothalamus's job is it's kind of a fight or flight part of the brain. It also tells human beings to eat food and drink water. It's a basic instinct. That's why we never have to teach babies to eat. A hand down the mouth means it's hungry. It's just a normal reaction that we have. It's a knee-jerk reaction. At some point, and we don't know when we cross over to chronic alcoholism, the hypothalamus stops working as a fight or flight part of the brain. And this is new science. What the hypothalamus, again, tells a human being is to drink water and eat food to survive. What the alcoholic, addicted hypothalamus tells me is to drink alcohol. And that's why people who's addicted on alcohol and drugs can go days, if not weeks, without water or food, because our brain is telling us there comes the biochemical disease that we can't stop once we start, because the brain, part of the brain, is telling us that we need alcohol to survive. And that was a lot of deep research over a period of about 9-10 years that I did. But it's the medical fraternity still frowning on it and go, well, we're not too sure. It's true. That's exactly what it is. So without a full neural pathway change in the brain, you're always going to relapse, period. AA calls it a psychic change. Psychic, psychologist, psychiatrist, and change, a change of mind is what it is. See, alcoholics and addicts, this is where we kind of blend, are born with more self-sabotaging neural pathways than they are self-care neural pathways. So I can start something looking really good, like, really good. Like I could do a job and start at 9 till 5. I'll be there at 8. The boss is going, oh, Rob, I see you early. Good job, man. And then 5 o'clock comes, I'm still working. I don't leave till 6. Oh man, good job. Give it a few weeks or a couple of months. It's like, where's Rob? It's 12 o'clock. He's still not here. That's what we do. We self-sabotage anything. I'm going to leave my girlfriend before she leaves me because I know she's going to leave me. That's my thinking all the way. I'm going to be nasty to him straight off because I know he's going to be nasty to me. We have to change that thinking of self-sabotage, of hatred in self. If you think, if anybody's in this kind of frame mind, we don't speak to our worst enemy sometimes the way we speak to ourselves. So internal dialogue is very, very important. When I drop a pen on the floor, I was a stupid idiot. Oh, you stupid idiot. Oh, my brain loves stuff like that. It loves negative stuff. And that will keep just that sentence, you stupid idiot, it'll keep. And do you know where that comes to fruition, to the prefrontal cortex? Just when I'm going for that job, that girl, that wife, that car, that house, that talk, that TV show, my brain will go, you stupid idiot. And I'll start to believe that before I go on the show. So it's important every day. I tell myself I'm amazing. I look in the mirror every morning and tell myself, I love you 10 times, because I'm storing the subconscious brain. So when it does come to a decision that I don't feel comfortable with, my brain goes, hey, I love you. You're a pretty cool guy. It works every time, you know, every single time. When people come here that's not had money, but they're really going for money and they want to be successful, I take them to the Porsche dealerships and we test drive the Porsche 911s. I take them to the $1 million houses because they're going to be living there soon. And what happens to the brain is when they start to earn money and they go to the Porsche dealership, they don't freak out as an addicted brain and go, shit, I don't belong here. I'm an imposter. What the brain says is, oh my God, I remember this. Oh yeah, this is you. It feels comfortable. We did the same with our houses. When they signed that big deal, we had an actor came to us some years ago. We picked him up from jail. He used to be a famous actor, but now he's too much drugs. He'd made a fool of himself, and Hollywood turned the back on him. He stayed at my ranch for 3 months, intensive care with us for 3 months. And we drummed it into him every single day that he could become the highest paid actor in the world ever. Not just now, ever in the world. And 4 days before he left us, he got a script through the mail. He opened the script and went, oh my God, it's a script for Iron Man. And although I can't mention any names, that's just one particular example of how we can change the brain for self-confidence. Because you can do anything you want. I mean, you literally can. I mean, people get scared. Well, I don't know. No, you actually can. There's no difference. The only difference in me and somebody who wants to be like me is I believed I could be me, you know, and maybe you don't. So again, internal dialogue all the time. Hang around with people that inspire you. Don't hang around that people are saying negative things and drain that energy from you. I did that for a long time. And do you know what happened? I got depressed and stopped believing in myself. And for part of about a year, I left the industry and was driving a little van for a company because I knew I was done, because I kept telling myself I wasn't good enough. And then I started hanging around the right guys. And oh my God. You see, here's a prime example, guys. And this might help you a little bit more, Chris. You know, I was going down the office a couple of weeks ago and I was walking past the kitchen and there was a new old nurse that's been there. She's been with us quite 2 or 3 years. And there was a young nurse just started with us. And as I walked past, I'd had a patient in and I heard the young nurse say to the other one, oh my God, did you see what Dr. Robb just did with that patient? He was suicidal when he came in and he's whistling and talking to everyone on the way out. That's amazing. And the other nurse who knows how I work says, it is. Have you told him that? Oh no. I mean, he already knows. He already knows. Obviously, I wouldn't say anything like that. We don't know. That's all I'll say. We don't know. Everybody doesn't know. I compliment 3 people every single day. I compliment. 1, because it flushes dopamine into my brain, so I feel good. And 2, you can change your life. You can change your life with a sentence or a word. And I've proven it time and time again. I went to a baking, I think it was HEB, which is a big supermarket here. And we ordered a cake for someone's 2nd birthday in AA. So we chose the cake. While my assistant's choosing it and talking to the baker, this old lady came out and we started to talk. And we're bantering back and forth. You know, she was about 80. If I was 60 years younger, you know, it was just a joke. We had a laugh. And she was smiling and laughing. And we went away. And the next day we went back because they'd wrote on the birthday cake to pick it up. And as we're picking it up, the assistant looked over and said, hey, there's that woman. And she came over and said, can I have a word with you? Of course, my alcoholic brain, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done now? Done something wrong, obviously. And she took me to one side and this is what she said to me. She says, I want to thank you for yesterday. I said, what for? For buying the cake? And she says, no, my husband died 12 months ago. And I've been the loneliest person in the world and scared in my apartment. This is my first day back to my job yesterday. And because we spoke like we did and laughed, I went home feeling grateful and thank you for my job. And I want to thank you. I had no idea. And that's what we do. We have no idea. But being a behavioral scientist, I can tell on your face when I compliment people, it means the world to them. And when people compliment me, it means the world to me. And the talk that you just did, Chris, means the world to me. Absolutely. unbelievable. What people say can change my day. Next question.
Wow, that was powerful. That was really powerful. And I'm not surprised that Chris said all that, and then that interaction between the two, because Chris is very encouraging. Thank you, Chris. You know, the thing that comes up for me, Dr. Robb, is someone who doesn't have the addiction. What can people do before the time where you are aware? And you know what I'm saying? Like before you decided to understand and be self-aware. Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of things that we test people, obviously, is if you're starting to get unkempt in your appearance, if you pull out of family gatherings, if you stop going downstairs to mom and dad to have dinner, it's all them things. If you have the addicted brain, it will be in the family. Check back, ask your mom, ask your dad, was granddad an alcoholic? And you know, you have to self-manage, because here's another thing I found out that blew the world's mind. The world's mind was alcoholism is the only self-diagnosed illness in the world. 10 DUIs do not make you an alcoholic. Your doctor's saying you are because you drank too much and the wife's moaning at you does not make you an alcoholic. Something happens to me when I put alcohol in my body. It doesn't happen to the guy who lives next door to me. That's the bottom line. So if you are happily drinking and there's no addiction or alcoholism in the family, there's a good chance you won't fall into trouble. And alcohol is amazing. You know, it really is for those people who can drink. So there's certain milestones that we can look for. Heavy depression, a lot of trauma from the past. They're also indicators. And just watch your own milestones when you go out. If you're going out 6 times a week and getting absolutely raging drunk and coming home, not remembering that, that's a warning sign. If you go out to the pub every Friday and Saturday night with your friends or your girlfriend, you come home and Monday morning you turn up for work bright and early at 7 a.m., you haven't got a problem. Believe me, you haven't. And I spend more time recently telling people that they're not alcoholic because people are scared. You know, I had one friend of mine, his son used to come to AA. He was 17 years old. And one day he went to his dad when he was 19. He said, Dad, I know I go to all these meetings with you, but I don't know whether I'm a real alcoholic. He said, you need to speak to Dr. Robb, thinking I would convince him. And I didn't. What I said was, can you imagine if he wasn't an alcoholic and you missed out on all him drinking fun games? So we sent him out to drink and he was successful at it, and he's still successful today.
This is such an intense arena for people who don't understand too. You know, I even touched in this arena for a while, and it's really interesting to kind of try to make some kind of connection within yourself to connect with the person who is struggling with this. And I can feel I know that there's times of kind of frustration for the other person. And it is a tricky road to somehow to be able to connect, to not, and to, I think even for my own self, to not take things personally if there's a negative reaction. And how do you do that when you have somebody who maybe doesn't struggle with addiction, but is connected with somebody who there's still a lot of negativity and not self-aware? Do you know what I'm saying? It can be a tricky road.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is education. I think that's one of my big things when I came to America, is to educate as many people as I can. And we do free seminars to parents. But it's just the information that we don't have. I mean, you ask anybody, literally anybody, what's an alcoholic? They'll say, oh, someone who drinks a lot of alcohol. Not the case. People don't know. So people don't know how to react. I get this all the time. Oh, is Rob coming to the party? Oh, well, none of us will drink. Really? That's like you being allergic to cheese and coming to my barbecue going, no one should use cheese because she's allergic to cheese. It just doesn't work like that. And people don't know that. When patients come and they go, I live with mom and dad, they're trying to hide the beer. You don't need to hide your beer. It's not about that. It's not the beer, it's not the alcohol, it's me. I'm the problem. When I meet somebody and connect with them, I would say, in all honesty, my education would be 10% of what I do. My research would be 20%. And 70% would be experience of what I've been through. That makes that instant connection with somebody else, because it looks like God's brought me through everything, every trial and error you could be. He's put me through it. So when someone comes to me and go, "What, Dr. Robb, what do you know in your big house? You've never lost your kids." Check. You've never been beaten up and almost raped. Check. You know, you've never been homeless. Check. You know, all these checks are off, and it's just like, you've never done that check. It's just, it seems like I've been put through everything. You know, even over the last 10 years I've been here, I lost my house. I was working with so many people pro bono because they needed it. No one could afford it. And I was helping them. And finally they foreclosed on my house. I didn't moan. I went to rent a house and I carried on. But it was all kind of a test, an education for me. Because I got to tell you guys, in all honesty, and I always say this, my time on the streets for education purpose and experience, it was like a semester at Harvard for me. Because the stuff that I learned on the street, how can you tell somebody not to drink if you've not been in that position? How can you understand that this guy stabbed his wife because she won't let him drink? How could you even comprehend if you don't know and you haven't been in them shoes? So you can go to as many colleges and schools as you want, but unless you've actually had the experience of the alcoholic talking to you, you have not a lot of experience to identify with this guy.
That makes total sense. That makes total sense. Experience with anything is really such a huge connector, isn't it? Like people, we can connect through trauma. Those of us who have experienced trauma. And I think Katie had her hand up first, and then Christy.
Hi, Katie.
Hi, Dr. Robb. Hard to follow up with Chris, for sure. My goodness, your words. But I have been on the edge of tears throughout this entire talk. It's kind of how I live my life now, in a way. It took me a while to realize I'm a highly sensitive person, my introvert, INFP. So I've spent the better part, like I said, the last 10 years understanding myself. And I kind of like Chris, I think my addictions, tended to be success, perfectionism, athletics, we touched on this a bit with Teresa last week even. So I had in turn have attracted those with other addictions. I spent 12 years in a marriage with somebody in an addictive personality, trying everything that I thought I knew. And I know so much more, about the addictive brain, so much more I'm still learning, especially from somebody like you. And I honestly recently got out of a relationship with somebody I'd known for about 17 years, that when you are talking about the alcoholism and the way it impacts the self-sabotage, the one-bedroom apartment, lock the phone, lock the door, I would just like, oh my gosh, I'm like, that resonates because I've been beating myself against, the wall, again, we heal ourselves, but then how, do we enter into these relationships with those that are also struggling? And I think the main question I have, for you is, those of us who want to hold space for those that have the addictive personality or are struggling, trying to find their healing path, how do you do it without enabling? Like you, you had to get to a place, obviously, that your rock bottom looked really fucking bottom out, like, and it may not be your kids, it may not be your partner, it may not be anybody, it may be that eventual angel, and we don't know what that angel is going to be. And so yeah, how do those of us that may not have that brain chemistry, hold space for those that are struggling?
It's a great question. It's it's such an awkward place to be in, because we don't want to enable, but we don't also want to make them feel less than, because that's how we feel when somebody tells you drinking too much. My best advice to anybody that asks that question is just be patient, kind, tolerant. They have a disease. If they had cancer, all will be sending them flowers and gifts. And, alcoholism is a disease, but no one wants to know. So I know this, when the alcoholic, and I include addicts and everything else in here, when the alcoholic is ready, he'll let that person know, like you, who stuck by him and loved him and cared for him, whether it's a boyfriend, a husband, or just friend. he'll know you're ready. It's very hard to understand. If you want to go a step further, educate yourself on the addiction he's going through, and just be there for him. I remember my dad once when I went to the house, they literally used to try and hide the beer when I recovered. But I went to the house one day, and as I was watching the living room, my dad was scuffling to the back of the sofa and he was hiding something. It was obviously beer. And I think it was a couple of weeks after they threw me out. I'm not sure. I was visiting or something. But after he left the room, I went to have a look, what kind of drink he'd hidden. And it wasn't a drink. It was a book on how to understand alcoholism. And it broke my heart. Because what happened was he had to throw me out when I was at my mum's. He was the one come upstairs when I was drinking. And he said, son, you've got to go. My mum couldn't do it. She was in tears in the living room. And he walked me downstairs and he gave me a little bag of my clothes and he gave me £20. And I think it was like 8 or 9, 10, 11 at night. And I slept that night in a bus shelter and I hated that man for that. I hated him for that, Katie. I really did. And it was about 10 years later when me and my mum was having a cup of tea late one night and my dad was at the pub. And we got into dad and I said, oh yeah, my mum and dad threw me out, Mum, remember that? And she says, I remember it. I said, do you know something? I've never really fully forgiven for that, Mum. And she looked at me. And this one I realized that it wasn't all about me. And she said, son, in 50 years of being married to your dad, that's the first time I've seen him cry. That's the position that we're in. We don't mean to hurt anybody. I was a sick person trying to get well. I wasn't a bad person trying to be a good person. There's a huge difference there. And if any of you in that situation and want help, I'm going to give you my phone number. You're all my friends now. If you want anything, you call me up and ask me, If I don't answer with a patient, I'll call you back. This is what it's all about. It's all about sharing and being there for one another. The advice is free. Nobody's going to sell you anything. This is purely a friend and new friends that I found on here. I want to be of service. I want to be of service to you. I hope that answered your question, Katie.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. Because, again, I think this is something we talked about with Teresa's talk too. I've been through my own traumas but my brain responded with anxiety, depression, psychosis. You name it, it's probably been there and done it. And so there's the education, piece is so vital and important. And I think it's just outstanding the way that you're putting it out there, because there is such a message too, where it's like, well, just, if it's a partner, it's like, move on. And again, we're not here to save everybody. I get that. We can only save ourselves. But I think the education piece, planting the seeds, it's just so vital. And that when you are always giving of yourself, it's always going to, be paid forward. And so just thank you for spreading that message and really modeling that. I think it's really powerful, Dr. Robb.
Thank you. I always wanted to do that when I came to America, was go the extra mile, attack this with as much education and tenacious attitude that I could. I'm very adamant, and I'm very that people can recover, but I'm also very adamant it's all about the trauma. So trauma, just looking at Teresa's thing before Christy comes in, is it sets up other underlying addictions, and I think that everybody in the world suffers from trauma, and if they went there back and did their own trauma work, then life becomes amazing. When you do the inner child and you do the SE, and you start seeing, first of all, what part did I play in that? And secondly, the trauma that you went through was not you, it was other people. And I often say to people, if you're sat at home now and you don't think you're going to amount to anything, or you don't think you're any good, I want to apologize to you guys, because somebody's put that there. We're born with $1 million minds. Stop hanging around 10-cent minds, is what I tell people. Like-minded people, it's amazing. It's just a different world when you get to this point. Sorry, Christy.
Hi. Oh, you're totally good. I don't really have a question. I just want to thank you. And gosh, I didn't think I was going to get emotional. Thank you for the work that you do. I am a recently retired law enforcement officer after 20 years. In 2014, I found myself at rehab addicted to opiates because I didn't deal with the trauma of the job. But then I thought it was just the job. But then after doing the work, I found there was a lot more to it. However, I just wanted to comment when you said, who we hang around with, who we surround ourselves with. earlier this year, I made a decision that I was going to level up the people that I started hanging out with, and including several people in this group that have just been amazing mentors to me. And it has made a huge impact on my life. I officially retired from my law enforcement job 2 weeks ago after leaving a majorly toxic environment, and have just launched my own business to be an addiction recovery coach, specifically for first responders. And that has been my dream and my goal. And I just want to thank you for being such a good example. When I saw Sarah post who was going to be the speaker today, I really knew I needed to be here. And I'm glad that I am. And thank you. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Christy. And I know with your experience, and thank you for your service, by the way. I know with your experience and passion, I can feel already you're going to make a great recovery coach. Absolutely amazing. And hey, there's my phone number I've just posted. I'm always going to be here. If you have any crazy questions from your future patients or clients, I want to be here for you and support you in that in any way I can. And if I can grow that business in any way I can, please let me know. I mean, we'll have you on our podcast. We'll put you on our website. We'll do what we need to do to get you there. Don't worry, we're going to support you. Thank you for doing this.
And you will be hearing from me, because that's what I need right now. So thank you.
That's why we met today.
All right.
Well, you know, Dr. Robb, I have to tell you that some of my friends that are in recovery are the most amazing people to me, are my heroes. And I just had to write down everything that I was feeling about you. I so appreciate you. I so admire you. I'm so grateful for you. You are one of my heroes. And I think for you to just be so wholehearted in life and be such an incredible lighthouse on this planet, I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you so much. That, I don't know.
Gosh, it's been amazing.
Like crying all over again. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've got to tell you, you know, especially when people listen like you guys do and the kind things that you say, it just makes my job worthwhile, because you know, for a long time, it was a lonely place to be when people didn't really recognize what I was doing or how I was doing it. It got pretty lonely, but I kept on. And all my guys are recovered alcoholics or addicts. They've all gone through their trauma work. And if you haven't gone through your trauma work and need some advice where to go, send me an email. It's just, my name's rob@robkelly.com, Robb Kelly. Just stick it in any search engine, you'll find me. Send me a message. If I can help anyone in any way, I will be. Absolutely amazing. I just want to tell each and every one of you that it's possible. You know, anything you want to do, be kind to people, act the Good Samaritan whenever you can. Be chivalrous. It's not dead yet. And be that person that does something that changes someone's life. Compliment 3 people tomorrow. It's amazing how the dopamine starts to be released. It's like, it's part of my stuff. Do the mirror work in the morning. Just go out there and get it. You know, each individual, their own dreams, the dreams come true. Once you visualize it, it's like with me, because I'm a spiritual guy. Once I visualize it, my God said, okay, let's walk and do it. No problems. Simple as that. Because I can visualize it in my head, you know, and it's just, I've got to tell you, and usually there's either 5 million people on the place watching me but this is the best meeting I've ever been in and spoke to. I don't know why. I just get a sense of love from you guys and compassion, and you know, and somebody just bought the book apparently, which I think he's gone off by now. But somebody bought the book on Amazon. It's the last thing my daughter said to me, Daddy, please stop drinking. We don't get any money off that. All that money goes back to charities and individual people around. I don't even know how much is sold, or I don't know anything about that. It all goes back. It's not me. And I always say to people, if you buy it and you don't like it, text me. I'll refund your money. I'm all about that, because it's just a book about me and education and what I went through and what you don't have to go through, and you know, information for other people. If your brother, wife, sister suffers from, you know, it's just a great piece of literature, which my wife wrote, by the way. All I gave her over the last 12 months was bits and pieces when things come to me. Oh, I remember this. I remember. And God bless you. She wrote everything down and she came up with this amazing book. So, yeah. So thank you for allowing me on today, guys. And thank you for all your kind messages. I love you all. I'm available to you all. And hey, let's do this again sometime, guys.
You know, Dr. Robb, you have another home here. You have
Thank
another
you.
home, another family. This has been wonderful, truly inspiring. I can't wait to get this out for other people to have this, education and pleasure and connection with you. So thank you so much. And thank all of you so much for coming on and your great comments.